Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 515, recorded live on Sunday, April 22nd. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show our guest, Arkat. Welcome back, sir.
Good morning. How's everybody doing out there?
And the morning it is. Our screenshot this week, 5 bears danced the night off in Argoness and Wayward Lobster, the 363rd screenshot of the week. Thank you, Bick, Delilah, Malavir, Noontoot, Palms Are Sweaty, and Tea Leaf for the screenshot. Some fun names, not just bears.
It struggled a little bit with a couple of names there.
Yeah, well, some of you got to figure out where this. You read it at first, and it's like, what is? Oh, right, there's supposed to be spaces there, and
right.
But a nice dancing bear shot. I wonder what the. I wonder how many bears people have ever, like the most bears. It needs to be like a Storm Reach Book of Records, you know?
Like how many bears you got in one place?
Yeah, how many dancing bears you got in a group. It's probably the Bearapalooza thing, which I think was this weekend. But they had, last time they had like 60 bears.
Oh,
in
no
one
kidding.
Instance, yeah.
Wow.
A lot of bears. That's the group that is vying for Bear and Wolf Dies. Yeah, a lot of fun. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyberears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will be 7 a.m. Pacific time next Saturday. I will probably be awake for that, even.
Gosh, I hope so.
I'll be here. I don't know if I'll be awake. It's a busy time of year for me, so it's like the one time I can actually get a show in next week. So for those of you who are on the East Coast, it'd be kind of nice, or if you're listening to us from Europe, probably a good time for you.
Right in the afternoon.
If you're in Hawaii, I apologize. This live show is not for you.
No.
This one's probably not much better either. So, but hey, you know what? That's why we post the show, and you don't have to watch it live, right? So there you go. In any case, you can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. Let's see. On the podcast this week, well, game news is pretty light. There's a little bit of community news. Our topical discussion will be on the back half of this show that we recorded earlier with Voodu, is the second part of our Old Baba's Hut strategy guide. So we'll finish that up this week. Hopefully that'll be really helpful for all you folks. Arkat's been running, you and I have been running Baba together a lot. So we really kind of got it down, I think.
I think so too.
There were some noticeable points where noticeable tactics that we figured out, like, oh, boy, this really makes this a lot easier.
Sure. The end fight where you kill all the wisps first and then the scarecrows, I think it really, really helps.
Yeah, it does, which we'll talk about. Will be part of the topic discussion. That section will be covered this week. But really quick, what do you think about the raids?
You mean Strahd and Baba? I like the Strahd raid a lot. I wish people would run it more. It seems like people are running Baba a lot, though. Baba's got some really nice stuff in it, so I like it for that. But I think the puzzles are a bit repetitive, or the fact that we do them twice is a little bit repetitive.
You do the whole raid twice, essentially.
Yeah. So that, I think they might have been able to stick in a different phase to make up for a loss of one of the
or even just change the puzzles.
Changing the puzzles up would be good. That would have been a good thing too. Yeah, for sure.
Because I like how it forces you to be coordinated and stuff in the puzzle section. I like the mechanic, but I agree that because you're doing the same puzzles over and over and over again. They're not randomized or anything like that. It's
right.
At a certain point, if you run it 15, 20, 300 times, it starts to become you're not really doing the puzzle as much as you're just turning the tiles in a predetermined orientation.
Yeah. Right.
Which helps you get through it a little faster, I guess. But,
sure.
In any case, let's talk about what game news we have, which is really just to there were some restarts this week.
Yes.
They've been having some issues with loading in and
grouping.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of kind of that stuff going on. But I think that's mostly kind of been fixed by those things. I don't know if they fixed the. I've been busy. I haven't been playing as much. But we had an issue where you couldn't zone between the Blue Water and the Blood of the Vine taverns. People kept DCing. I don't know if they fixed that with the restart or not.
I don't know, but it seems like when we were having the trouble, it seemed that to me the way to fix it was to, zone into the Van Richten's tower, and then go back to the Blue Water on whatever the thing on the Vine Tavern is.
Blood on the Vine.
Blood on the Vine. Thank you. So instead of doing it, straight there from the Blue Water, go to the Blue Water. From the Blue Water, go to Van Richten's, and from Van Richten's, go to Blood on the Vine. It was just a really goofy way to handle it, but yeah.
It was kind of funny though. I was waiting there, and like some people started, like everyone started DCing, and the group was like, "Whoa, what's going on there?" So
yeah.
But there you go. Bonus days. A great bonus day. This week, it's the Strength in Numbers weekends. You get plus 5% XP for every member in your party or raid group other than yourself. You also get plus 5 VIP XP boost. That would be today if you're listening to this live. If you listen to the published show, it's too late. But some things of note with that is you do get those bonuses to Reaper XP as well. So it can be a pretty nice time to get some Reaper XP. Of course, I will be at home for about this amount of time. So,
no Reaper for you.
Nope. Not this week. Such is life. Let's see. Store news. The Store More Loot sale. 20% off of character banks, shared banks, crafting storage, and plat storage. Inventory space and bags through April 26th. You can also get the coupon code Lasting Potion of Jumping plus 20. The code, you get 5 of those. The code is JumpPot. So a pretty nice little. Those are always pretty useful.
Hey Patrick, have we finished game news? Because there's actually a couple of things that we didn't cover. I'd like to
have at it
briefly. Okay, so there's a few things that I in preparation for the show, I looked over the dev tracker, and there's a couple of things that kind of stood out. For example, Memoirs of an Illusory Larcener. That is a quest that is closed. And it was some sort of weird, when you zoned in, you kind of like zone into a rectangular solid of stone or something. The whole rest of the instance didn't load.
It's been something that's been going on for a couple of weeks since Update 38 went live, actually. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So. That's why it's closed. It's because that quest has a strange teleporting mechanic. You don't teleport. You stay in a fixed location, i.e. that circle that you go to, and the world teleports to you.
It's to you. Right.
So, and because of that mechanic, which I don't know why they did that, because it's the same mechanic. That same mechanic has broken a couple of times.
Then there's we talked about the restarts, but then I thought it was an interesting observation that some guy put up some screenshots of some piles of dirt and rubble mysteriously appearing where they went before, and I was like, wow, that's awfully strange. And I guess there's
it's a good eye to catch that.
Yeah. I don't think I ever would have caught that sort of thing. And then of course there was the saga completion issue, which looks like Kokomo Jobo, I think, posted that he figured one way to replicate the issue with. So there's that, and then there was.
Well, hang on. I should. That's a good one to mention too, because I think the information was new this week that you should not. They're recommending that you don't complete a saga, look at the end reward, and then leave the area.
Right.
Don't turn in the saga until you're ready to claim it.
Right. Yep. And then there was this. And here's the thing. Here's the one that kind of really piqued me, or rather, he poked at me a little bit. Steel Star made a post this week. This is regarding the Trace of Madness effects on some of the U38 items, this is a rather blasé response to complain about how not very useful those effects are. He said, and I quote, if you don't find the upgrade scheme useful, feel free not to use it," which is, I mean, that's pretty much true of just of pretty much anything in the game. I wish he would have been a little bit more communicative, or used a better explanation of why they did what they did.
I think he was, because you only read part of the quote. The full post is, the Trace of Madness on update 38 items is intended to be a nice flavor effect, a little thematic bonus for those who want it.
Right.
If you don't find the upgrade scheme useful, feel free not to use it. The item's other effects were not diminished to make room for the upgrade scheme.
Sure.
They're already as powerful as intended. So they did it more. So he's explaining that this was not an intent. This was intended to be a thematic thing, that because you're working with, some Zoriat forces and kind of stuff, that they thought it was a neat flavor thing to add on to that, but they didn't design the items with that in mind in terms of power level. So you don't need to use it to achieve the power level that they're intending.
And you just gave a much better explanation as to their intent than he did. So
that was also his third or fourth attempt at explaining it.
So you think maybe there's a little frustration setting in there?
Less frustration and more conciseness than anything else. But yeah. Anyway,
that's all I had for game news.
Thanks for bringing some of that stuff up. Some of that stuff's been going on for a couple of weeks too, like the memoirs thing and the saga thing. But some of that information is also new. So there's some other. They did also mention a few things about the new Artificer tree has a reconstruction spell-like ability. That it's the same timer as the one from the Blade Forged.
Right.
So you can't use them both at the same time.
Right.
However, they do calculate differently.
Yep.
Because the Artificer one calculates based on, and this is kind of just generically true, things in a class tree work off of the class level.
Yep.
Whereas things in the racial tree work off the character level.
Yep.
So that may impact which one of those two you want.
So that means if you have a Blade Forged or Warforged Artificer, then that reconstruct spell or whatever it is not useful to you. It's you use the one from Blade Forged. Your Blade Forged, you use the racial Blade Forged.
Well, if you're just pure Artificer, it doesn't matter which one you use. They'd be the same at that point. But if you're multi-classing an Artificer, then the one from the racial tree would be more powerful.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, all right, let's jump into community news. The 280th Chronicle, Bjornicus has created a homebrew tabletop module based on the Korthos storyline, The Salvation of Korthos. It's always fun when people do stuff like this.
Yeah, thumbs up for that. That I downloaded that. It was beautiful looking. They even used screenshots of the dungeon layouts, from the overhead map. I thought he did a really, really good job with that.
And that's a lot of work too. So it's pretty crazy. See, Strimtom power level to Wolf in an all-day stream.
Oh my god.
I still haven't got a chance to play with my druid yet, unfortunately. So
yeah, I'm working on my bear.
How do you like it?
I think I would have liked it a lot better had they not. And we'll talk about this on the U38 update. Sure. But I think I would have liked the bear a lot better had they not changed the requirement in the Protect Nature's Protector, where you have to have not only. We also had to have a shield to use some of those tier 5, 4, and 3 things.
I thought it was just you had to be in bear form.
No. So for example, the +6 to con, the plus 25% hit points, and the +9 or whatever it is to PRR or MRR.
Right.
Those you actually have to be using a shield. So forget the two-handed. So forget the bear with a great sword or maul or something. You have to be it's sword and board only, or to use basically to use those really good enhancements.
I missed that. I thought it was just
Yeah.
you had to be in bear form.
Nope, bear form and use your shield.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that threw me. It was different on Lamania, and and when they made it live, they added that shield requirement, and that just
Even the
that
even
really.
the release notes don't say that. That just says while in bear form.
Yep. Well, see for yourself.
Yeah. Interesting. That's kind of a bit of a bummer.
Yes. Yes, it was a bummer for me too.
Anyways, let's see. Game Leo Dan is streaming DDO on YouTube. You can check out his most recent show there. The Guild for the week. The Risk Takers are a newly created permadeath guild on Orion. For people interested in a particular challenge, check out the website. You can also find Tuxedo Moon in game as well. The comment for the week: the huge statue in the harbor holding a beacon protects Stormreach from curses. What else does it protect against?
So my wife came up with not much. Stormreach always seems to be in some sort of trouble. So
that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I was gonna say darkness.
There you go. Now it doesn't protect us from that. Yeah.
See the fan site news. And all right, here we go. There's a lot of fan site news. It seems to be growing as well. So let's see. We got a shout out for our episode last week. DDO Players News found Zugget Moy and Rainbows. You have to listen to the show to know why those two things go together. Damsel DDO saved the wine in episode 88. Sip wrote around Bone Grinder. Sip is someone who writes for, I think it's Massively OP. She writes about games, and he recently came back to the game and has been blogging once a week about DDO, and he's been working his way through Ravenloft. I think he just actually posted his. I think he also posted his, or maybe it was a tweet about running Invitation for Dinner. Said it was one of his favorite or one of his best MMO experiences in many years. So.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Let's see, Mickey raids for the 71st week. House of Grouse is finds the face of evil. DDO Wiki Talk reached episode 99. Congratulations there. DDO PL, that is it's Portuguese, right? I think I said it wrong. Or no, it's not Portuguese, it's Polish.
Polish, yeah.
That's
PL.
what it is. I couldn't remember which one of those I got wrong and then got corrected. So the Polish stream collects bones. McVegan Pants runs against the slave lords. Doug Lindauer paid debt and taxes in the newest Bard Life. Bachelor chills out on Fridays on Ice. Rock and Friends roleplay DDO. Our Brighter Days Ahead ran update 38. Tone Station fights the Disciples of Rage. And Tito LP finds fresh baked dreams. Let's see. Also, Cordovan found Madness and More in House Tarasco. You can check the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live streaming for that. Some other videos I wanted to highlight. Voodu has a video showing the new wolf and bear emotes. I didn't actually realize that they got new ones.
Oh yeah, I was watching that. I was watching that before this show, and some of the emotes are actually pretty good. Some of them aren't impressive at all, though. So.
Emotes are always kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, and in all honesty, it's really the because pointing is just pointing on all the characters, and a lot of them are the same regardless of what character you're on. But it's always fun to see what they've come up with for some of those emotes. And the wolf forms obviously lend to a lot more choices and artistic license to do that with, so that's kind of fun. Also, Axel DDO on his YouTube channel did a playthroughs for Update 38's quest, so you can check out those if you would like to see people running that. Maybe if you haven't run it yourself, just be aware of spoilers for that. So, DDOCast Splat News, we're off for a couple of weeks. We will be back May, 8th? I think it was 8th. So we'll be back for not next week or the week after that, but the week after that. So
right.
Got a little while to be breaking for that. Lightning Post. We got a couple comments in from our show last week talking about the release of Update 38 and Baba's Hut. Fuzzy Duck 81 said he's been loving Renegade Master Maker Tree. Having that Cure Light Wounds mixture as a SLA is basically the new first to take enhancement for a fleshy arty or one running in parties, in his opinion. With its dual use for healing multiple party members at once and AoE damage against undead without having to worry about keeping a stack of potions as components. Remember, though, that even with melee attacks at lower levels, don't expect it to be the DPS tree, because it isn't. It's about keeping you and your party alive. You'll likely have trouble fitting in critical boosts for weapons, especially if you go to Tier 5 in the tree. Although if you're playing as a Scourge, ASMR, or a Norm, you can get some bonuses that apply with certain arty weapons through the racial lines. Be an interesting combination. ASMR and Artificer.
ASMR Artificer. I hadn't even considered that.
I'm curious how it's because I think the bond effects would still work, because there's a lot of stuff with the Artificer Renegade tree that like it locks it out, right?
I think you mean like stance type things.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't say it won't, so I wouldn't imagine it would. He says it's nice being able to play an effective melee animal form druid without having to rely on bugs. He's been having a lot of fun with his bear. It'll be interesting to try to mix it with barbarian and having frenzied berserker who can be an effective party healer and buffer too. Probably not at the same time, but I mean you can't cast spells while you're raging, but
sure, absolutely, bears can.
Oh right, they have that.
There's an enhancement.
Does that work for barbarian rage? Well, I guess it's they have their own rage, right? Yeah.
It says rage.
You can rage like a barbarian. So. It starts out saying you can't cast spells, but I think there's something that's higher that. In Tier 4 you can now cast Druidic Magic. Yeah, that would be a pretty interesting combination. Fun. See, it says for the Wisps in Baba's Raid, if you're DPSing them, he highly recommends Arcane Pulse for casters, since they take extra damage from Force. And that spell has low basic SP cost, plus a short cooldown, so you can get multiple stacks of it in a place really quickly.
Really quickly, yeah. It's a very nice enhancement.
See, it says Psychonic Blast being broken is annoying, but he has a feeling once it's fixed, they'll probably do something to offset it to keep the difficulty up. Maybe.
Does that mean it's broken in that we can't evade it? Is that the?
Well, he's saying it's broken. I don't know. I can't remember ever seeing devs saying one way or the other if it's broken or not.
Yeah.
So, he does give the idea that Baba should be able to cast Disjunction. I'm not sure I'm in favor of that.
Oh well, no, I think she should.
But you're never. I'm always the one taking. Well, I'm not sure I want to be disjuncted every 3 minutes. A lot of nice stuff on my gear that keeps me alive.
Oh sure, well, get that draconic heart, and you're good to go.
The most important part of dealing with the hut in Baba's raids, if you get the aggro, player hum yakety sax while you run away from it.
Yep.
There you go. The Amber Sign also wrote in, said you can run into the mist on normal with a first life level 20 character. He's done it just to pick up a Sentinel Jewel to start feeding. Wouldn't recommend inviting that same character in your Baba raid, though. Yeah, it might not go well for that character.
No.
You can technically just run it on heroic levels, too. You don't even have to wait till you get to epics. You just it doesn't matter if you run into the mist on legendary or heroic. You still get access to Ravenloft. And that's the only flagging you need for Baba's raid, which is still kind of weird, but whatever. It's probably one of the reasons why people are running Baba more often than Strahd.
Well, I think the reason why they didn't need to flag, they didn't want you to flag for us because they released it later.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree.
So.
Let's see. He says that he thinks the first person to get the hatred of the hut is the person with the most Baba aggro just a second or so after she activates. I don't know. I've tried to figure this out. So he says someone can lay down an AoE on Baba to pick up the hut. I don't know that necessarily it's true. I haven't really tried it, but I have noticed several times where the hut, like when the hut comes up, it immediately aggroes on me and then immediately switches aggro.
Right. Yeah, I haven't tried. I haven't figured out a rhyme or reason for. I mean, the only thing that I know for sure is that the hut will change aggro when she says, "Stop chasing that one. Get that one over there." That's the only time then I know that's the hut will change aggro for sure.
And she only broadcasts it once. Imer Science said it's the first time. I can actually tell you for sure that it is not always the first time. It always changes when she says that, and that seems to be a hit point. I haven't really paid enough attention, but it does seem to be a hit point barrier on Baba that she switches the hut. But the hut will change aggro before and after that.
Yes.
So it's not the only time or even the first time. It will happen all the time. Maybe the first time it'll happen. I did see someone posted a strategy guide, and I think they did that before we did our strategy guide, where they're talking about you can take a D-door, and you will lose aggro of Baba or the hut, which is kind of an interesting mechanic. It basically I guess the D-door would essentially remove you from their threat list.
Right. Huh, interesting. It's just easier to use invisibility, though.
Yeah, you can just invis, and
because you have to
the
cast.
hut can't really find you.
Right, you have to cast invisibility. All you have to do is cast a spell. With D-door, you have to cast a spell, and then you have to double click on the D-door. So
you have to find someone who can cast it for you, generally, unless you're the one who can cast it. So,
yeah.
But anyways, he says the hut will occasionally do a stomp attack where it sits the person down. It hates. There are some ways to get around that. A lot of stuff that prevents you from getting knocked over will work on that.
Yep.
But if that person is kiting the hut, that will do stomp at the person's last location, and if that's amongst the group, the hut can still damage the group even when it's being kited. Stay away from the group. Yes, please. I always try to get people to keep the hut in the south, which oddly enough seems to be hit or miss depending on the person.
Right. Right.
Don't kite it around the circle. That's
right.
That I don't find helpful. You want to keep it kind of in a contained area to let other people work in the rest of the area. Yep. Especially if you're kiting scarecrows. So, all right, shall we close out the news section of the show here?
By all means.
Anything you want to plug before we head out?
Nope, not today.
Well, thanks for listening to the show, and thanks to Arkat here for joining me. Thanks also to all the other contributors for DDOCast, make this show possible and take some of the burden off of me. And thanks to Sandy Stone Games, Wizards of the Coast, and Decipher Ears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com. You can also support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email me at DDOCast.com. I'd love to get you DDOCast@gmail.com. Love to get more of those on the show, on the show's site. A lot of people that are doing that, so we want to highlight you and give people a resource to find what you're doing. You can also hit us up at DDOCast.com for our show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show or have a comment on this episode, maybe a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment, or you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Fracas on Galena. If you play melees, toggle to aim with the mouse as you do in a first-person shooter game. So with that, stay tuned for part 2 of our Baba's Hut strategy guide coming up shortly. Thanks for listening. Welcome. We are talking about Baba's Hut still. We're going to finish that up today. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have raid enthusiast, Voodu.
Hey, everyone.
Let's see. Last time we talked about the hut, we got through the first 2 phases. We'll talk about the other 3 phases today, which are very similar to the first phases. So we finished the hut. I guess we didn't technically finish the hut because we didn't break the crystal yet, which I kind of forgot about. But so you get all of the puzzles done, right? And then you get into, you kind of come back to the same spot. There's a lever that opens a gate, and behind that gate is some scarecrows, some red name scarecrows, and some will-o-wisps, and a crystal. If you're just doing this on normal and even hard, you can just destroy the crystal. The first time through the hut, you actually only get down to half, and then you get thrown out of the hut. If you're doing it on a harder difficulty, I would recommend at least killing the will-o-wisps as they spawn. But still, your main focus can really just be the crystal. You can kite the scarecrows around. You don't really need to kill them at this point. And then once you kill the crystal, you get sent back outside for round 2 of Baba and the Hut. Which is very similar to the first, right? So we talked about last time watching your hut aggro. Don't run people over with the hut if you can avoid it. Baba's still going to be around doing the same thing that she's been doing. Watch out for this iconic blast. But you also have scarecrows and wisps around. So how do you like to deal with those guys?
So if we have any kind of insta-killers, hurlers, quivering palm, assassinators, we put those guys on the wisps. It's nice to get the wisps out of the way right away. If you don't have that, then you can just put your DPS on the wisp. But either way, it's nice to get rid of the wisps as fast as possible. They're not going to respawn. There might be a few that spawn, but they're not going to continuously respawn. Right. It's just once they're gone, they're gone. And then, so you have a few folks assigned to the wisps, and then everybody else, we just pile on Baba at this point.
Yeah, what I've started doing is, at this point, I'll assign 1 or 2 people to kite the scarecrows around. It's not really worth killing them, in my opinion, at this point. You could. They will stop spawning. But it's not really necessary. And then I have, my tank is going to go pick up Baba and lock her down. You can DPS if you want a little bit there. But I find as the tank, it's a lot better to block, mostly because I have a shield that gives me more resistance while I'm actively blocking. And then I have everyone else kill the wisps until the wisps stop spawning. Once the wisps are done, then we pile on Baba. That's kind of how I started doing it. On easier difficulties, that's not really necessary, but I like to do, people who know me know that I like to do the raids on easier difficulties as if we were doing harder difficulties, so people actually get used to those strategies and doing it that way. And then I usually ask 1 or 2 range people to provide what I call covering fire on the tank. The reason for that is it's not too terribly difficult to tank just Baba. If you get 3 wisps and a couple of scarecrows on you, it's not going to go well. So we want to pull that stuff off of the tank. So have a couple people kind of providing covering fire for that. And otherwise, once Baba gets down to about half health, she goes away. The hut jumps back into the middle, and we go back inside the hut. I think that pretty much covers that phase. Again, it's more or less the same as before. Nothing really crazy about it. You ready? Anything else you want to say about that phase?
Nope.
All right, so you go back into the hut. It's exactly the same as before with one change. There's wisps around, which, again, wisps are kind of mean. Shrine now, because you're not coming back. So get that out of the way. We usually tell people to go to the same sides. But, if one side is clearly having trouble with DPS or something like that, this would be the time to change that, right? Just, I've even done, occasionally I've sent a 7th person to one side and only gone 5 on the other side because one side was so clearly dominating the other side. It's not a race, per se, but I guarantee you, if one side is waiting for long periods of time, they're going to give the other side flack. Especially if I'm in the group. So, kind of rebalance stuff there. Again, there's will-o-wisps now. Other than hurls or mass frogs that can take out the totems instantly, I tell people to go after the wisps first, then worry about the totems or scarecrows. Just to make sure that, the wisps are going to kill you. The shadows, probably not. If you're paying attention, the shadows shouldn't kill you. Unless you're, really low on heat. Like, one side has, almost no healing, so. But we've kind of talked about how splitting the party. I will say there was a person in our party who had 5 levels of cleric. mostly to fuel his tree form. And I had him go the other direction from the cleric. There was really only one healer. Like, you go the other way. He's like, I'm not really a healer. Like, no, but you're better than everyone else. You have a healing aura. It does 40 ticks of healing every couple of seconds. We'll take that on the other side. So it's not on the same side as the main healer. We didn't mention it last time. But we should mention it. There's no death timer inside the hut. So that's a point. That's important to know. So you can get people up a lot faster there. But take out the wisp before you get to the totems or the puzzles. And other than that, we've kind of talked about last time about coordinating that. Anything else you really want to add here?
We've noticed that when we do it on R1, doesn't seem to be any wisps.
Oh, that doesn't. They do occasionally not show up.
Okay, maybe we've just been lucky or something.
Yeah. So
we just started doing it on R1. I think we've probably only done it like 2 or 3 times on R1 so far.
Yeah, we're just kind of actually getting to the point of doing Elite and Reaper. It does take. I have noticed that the difference in those is, normal hard is almost negligible. The hard going into Elite, there's kind of a noticeable bump in needing DPS, and the same would kind of be true of Reaper. Reaper, you kind of start running into the problem of healing. You definitely don't want 2 healers on that as well. All right, so we get back to the crystal. We break the crystal. We get back outside. Now we're to the end fight. And let's see. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Because this is the part where we actually haven't. We traded some information, and then my strategy's changed since then. So I don't know how you want to play this.
You probably have a more defined strategy than we do. Like, we're pretty sloppy about it. Like, even when we're doing R1,
sure.
I will say that what we like to do on higher difficulties is just have one person pull the shambling mounds away from everybody else and just hold them away, and we don't even bother with trying to DPS them down or anything like that, or interrupting their special ability.
The bold strategy. I like to kill them.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So, but that's certainly a strategy. It can be difficult to. Well, let's get to the shambling mounds in a minute, because my current strategy kind of isolates them a little bit. So in this last phase with Baba, the first thing to know is there's no hut. It just stays there. It doesn't get up, which is great. It is important to know, however, that it will block healing. So I usually tell people, don't run behind the hut, right? Anything that's behind the hut will come out. Even the wisps will kind of come out if you just run to the other side of the hut, right? Because it also blocks their spells, so they can't get you. So don't run behind the hut. If you don't know what behind the hut means, it has a front door, and then the other side would be the behind part. It's kind of a narrow path behind it compared to the rest of the room, so stay away from that area. I again have a tank go and lock down Baba. You do not want to DPS Baba. The shambling mounds, which we'll get into more detail in a minute, spawn based on Baba's health. And you don't have to take her down very much before they spawn, so don't DPS Baba. I'll have 2 people kind of providing covering fire, pull whatever goes after the tank off of him so that they can just deal with Baba, and that's all they have to worry about. Everyone else should be killing first wisps and then scarecrows. And they do respawn, but only a certain number of times. So they will stop spawning at a certain point. The burst DPS thing is going to come into play here with the shambling mounds in a second. But when you get out, anything that you can burst that you're going to get back within about 2 minutes, you can go ahead and use here right away. Because after about 2 minutes, that's when you're going to want your burst stuff back. So a mini shot is fine. Probably not a good idea to use your Fury, though, because I think that's a little bit longer of a time. But as you kind of play it, and you can kind of get used to when you're going to, and we'll kind of talk about when you really need your burst DPS, but you can go ahead and burst to start with and kind of help kill some stuff. Once all the trash is done, you can start working on Baba. I will mention, if you're light on heals, maybe your healer's dead at this point. Maybe you should just wait until you can get everyone up and you're ready to go for what's gonna kind of come next. And I think you also just kill all the trash too, right?
Yes, definitely.
And do you do it before you get the shambling mounds, or do you just kind of smash it, Hulk smash?
Yeah, we just make a pile. We put the insta killers on the wisps and make a pile with everything else. But I'm definitely gonna try. What you're saying about hold up on Baba, kill all the trash first, and then get back to Baba. I think that sounds interesting.
We quickly noticed two things about doing it this way. One is you actually get less lag because there's so many things running around, and the shambling mounds make it harder to move around, and we've noticed that we were getting some lag there, and that's all kind of gone away by killing all the trash first. The thing is, anytime you lose killing them, you get back essentially in it being less chaotic and fewer people dying from the trash when you get all the shambling mounds around and everything like that. So it's really kind of actually made things a lot easier for us. Okay, so we've got all the trash down. It's no longer spawning. Everyone's up. We're ready to go. We start working on Baba. We didn't really mention it before, but it really does help if you have a tank. Keep her facing one direction. I like her facing towards the outside and kind of near the edge, so that her Psychonic Blast doesn't turn around and get a lot of people and kill a bunch of people. Especially if you're dealing with timers, that can be an issue. After a little bit of DPS, not a lot. Again, it doesn't take much. This is why I say don't DPS Baba until we're to this point. You DPS Baba, you get 2 large red name shambling mounts. They do a fair amount of melee damage. They have a special ability where they can basically make everyone move slower. So if you're kiting the reason why I kill the crows at this point is because if you're kiting a bunch of scarecrows and now you can't move, they're going to catch up and start smacking you. We want to keep people alive. The other thing they do is they have this special ability. I'm not even sure what to call it, but we call it charging or arcing is kind of their tell. So what happens is they'll do the same kind of move, where they reach into the ground. So it looks like they're going to slow people down. But there'll be this giant red kind of arc around them. It looks very similar to... there's the druid ability. You should know this.
Body of the Sun.
Yeah,
it's the same graphic.
Yeah, it's the same graphic as that. It's the same graphic out of the similar ability in Draconic Incarnation that has the same ability. It's just a lot bigger. When that happens, drop the sync on them. I mean, this is where if you have, particularly if you're kind of struggling with your DPS throughout the raid, this is where you need to burst and really do a lot of damage. You don't have to kill them. But what needs to happen is you basically have to interrupt what they're doing, which means you have to do a certain amount of damage. And I don't have a percentage for you or anything. Just, this is where the only thing that you should not drop doing is taking Baba. I used to actually, as the tank, run over and help, but I found that was less helpful because then Psychonic Blasts were catching more people. You should keep healing because you need people to stay alive. But anything else, if you have people that are out, if you're kind of doing more of a Hulk smash kind of method, stop working on the wisps, stop working, unless you're going to kind of go with Voodu's strategy of just kind of ignore it and power through it, Hulk smash these things and put all of your DPS in whatever one is charging. Nothing else is important other than keeping people alive. If you don't do that DPS, what happens is they will hit everyone in the party, regardless of where you are in the room, unless you're dead. If you're dead, you're fine. They'll hit you on normal. You will lose about, I think it's 50% of your health.
I think so.
On hard, it's 70, and on elite, I believe it's 90. Elite and Reaper, it's 90%. And 90% of your health is a lot, especially if you have Baba's aggro. So unless you've already agreed that you're just going to try and power through it, which you can go that way. I don't know that I would recommend that, but that's certainly a way that you can go about it. It's really important that you get some high DPS there. Now, remember that there's 2 of these things. So not long after the first one finishes, the other one's going to do it, too. I have started trying to get people to focus on one. If the DPS is really good, you can start by burst DPSing them as soon as they come up. It can kind of go either way. You have to kind of call it based on how much DPS you have. If you need the burst DPS to prevent the hit point drain, save it for when they start charging. If you don't, I would say burst as soon as they come up, start nailing them. I do generally try to get people not to kite them away from everybody else. I try to pull them towards the center more than towards the sides, but it's not super critical. And I've found that people that are kiting, if they kind of really focus on that, they tend to get killed, which is not ideal at this point. So, that's how we have started dealing with the mounds and the trash. Once the mounds are dead, it's just focusing on Baba, and then it's a cakewalk from there. But it's really about DPSing the mounds at the right time with enough DPS.
I will say, if people want to experiment with just holding the mounds aside, that, like you said earlier, the mounds don't have to die. Once Baba goes down, the raid's over, the mounds go away. So, and it is a big deal. If you're doing it on a higher difficulty and you're down, 90% of your health, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point in the raid, realize that there's not anything else going on. It's just Baba and the mounds. So if you do have a tank holding Baba's aggro and the tank is taking the brunt of Baba's spells, then other people aren't taking as much damage. It still can be pretty scary to be that low, but it's not like you're getting blasted on all sides by a bunch of stuff at this point. So if you've
killed the trash.
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to kill the trash.
If you are not killing the trash, you better be ready to drop everything you got on those mounds when they start charging, because if they zap your hit points, you're hosed.
Yeah, if they zap your hit points and there's still a bunch of trash running around at that point, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But if you've gotten rid of the trash and you've got two tanks that, you get a self-sufficient tank on the mounds and and a good tank on Baba, is not that big of a deal. We've found, because we're doing that on R1, just holding the mounds aside on R1, and we've been able to reliably do it that way.
If I were to use that strategy, I would probably have a second person. Like, once the mounds zap, I would have someone go over and even if it's just a rogue with heal scrolls, help keep that other guy alive, just so the mounds don't get free. You cannot intimidate the mounds. They do not intimidate. It's kind of a bummer, but
yeah, there's just like you said, there's very little in this raid that can be intimidated, and it's frustrating to an tank.
Yeah, you don't need a tank is really helpful for Baba. You don't necessarily need a tank for this raid, right? Like, while you're killing all the trash and you're not DPSing Baba, you could run around the hut and keep the hut between you and her. That would block her spells. You just kind of need to keep your aggro, really. A tank is less critical in this raid than it is in Curse of Strahd, where you really want the Intim tank. This one is more about the critical part of this raid is the burst DPS and dealing with those mounds. That's really what's gonna. I just don't see even pug groups in this fail a raid until you get to the mounds. That's where they run into trouble. No.
Yeah.
I did promise that I would talk about if you're going to gibbers up, if you've died and you wipe and you're going to gibbers up, some strategies that I've found with that. Hopefully you have several people that have them. What I've noticed the most, if you have the mounds still up, have one person gibbers first. A lot of times what happens is at least one of those mounds is going to start charging right away as soon as that person's alive. Obviously, you're going to wait till everyone's able to be res, but so when that first person pops, they're kind of a sacrificial lamb, because they're probably going to start charging right away, and you just don't want everyone to start getting up and have to deal with that right away. If you're lucky, both of them will start doing it. So as soon as everyone gets up, or as soon as they charge, then you have the second main group of people. I usually try it to not be my primary healer being someone who gibbers up. I usually try to get them an actual raise right away. That can be really important. If they haven't used a Death Pact and they have that available, that would be a good time to use it, because they might die and be able to get right back up in that area. Or I'm not sure if you can actually gibbers and then use a death pack to get back up. Seems like you probably could. I may have to experiment with that. But, have a couple people get up. Maybe have one of them grab Baba's aggro, and the other ones just start throwing raises everywhere. Those people are going to die within a minute because of the Gibbers Blade, but try to get things back up as quickly as you can. Wait till... The other thing is, don't just wait for your raise timers to come off. Make sure everyone's bursts are off. Like, if you've got Fury shots, you want to make sure that all of those people are ready to go with their Fury shots, so when they get up, they can unload into the mounds. As well, so anything else you want to say about Baba's Hut, or you think we got it all covered?
I'm gonna toss in my token gripe that I really don't like that you basically have to do everything twice in this raid, but that's not part of the strategy. But it is just kind of
It would be nice if there was some different stuff going on, a little bit different stuff going on.
There was really no reason to do it twice. I mean, I think you could have just lopped off that second half, and that's a full raid right there. But I guess that's a different topic.
Yeah, I don't disagree. At least when you come out of the hut, there's enough differences going on between the first fight and the last fight, which I like. The Shambling Mounds are a good part of that. But yeah, going through the whole hut puzzle part twice. At least if they would have made the puzzles different, that would have been better, right?
Yeah, it's kind of silly.
Like, even if you, like, the second time through, you had to do the star tile puzzles or the lights on, lights off puzzles or something like that instead of the floor tiles, or just even if different floor tile puzzles would be great. But
I'll also say that I just feel like those floor tile puzzles are so out of place. The sort of they just don't fit with the environment. I always see those and I feel like I'm in House C or something. They just are so out of place, and that's why one of the things I've said is, like, if they had just changed the colors or something to make them blend in more naturally. But to me, it just throws off the whole, like, feel of the raid.
Yeah,
it's just so out of place.
I agree. It would be the one thing that I would really kind of like to. I've kind of gotten past the go through it twice. The thing that I'd really like to change is the Shambling Mounds, give them different names or different colors so they're more easily identifiable between the two. Not exactly the same, but there you go. All right, so thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Join us next time for an entirely new topic, and thanks to Voodu for joining me today and knocking these shows out. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, swag. Sorry, not swag. Swag is still kind of an issue. Hopefully someday it will be resolved, but that may take a while. You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates at DDOCast on Twitter. If you'd like to join the discussion, leave a comment or email us, ddocast@gmail.com. Until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.